This is possibly the best thing that ever happened to me. No, not just possibly, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. That intro was maybe a little bit dramatic, but it is true that the Clone Wars series is one of the best series I've ever watched. And I recently did a rewatch of the entire Clone Wars series in chronological order this time. This rewatch just reminded me of all the reasons why the Clone Wars is such a good show. And today I'm here to present that to you. Let's get started with point number 1. In my opinion, she is enough of a reason to watch the entire series. Her development from the annoying kid to the strong and intelligent warrior that she is just fantastic to watch in the Clone Wars. There's not much else to say about this point other than Ahsoka is great and her journey in the Clone Wars is very good. One of the main topics of this series is, the clones themselves, and I think it's quite important to give them this place to shine. The films kind of gloss over the clones, they're just there, and we as viewers never get to form any sort of connection to them. There are so many things to talk about when it comes to the clones, the ethical issues and those kind of things, and also just what it's like to be a Republic clone. The Umbara arc is a great example because it deals with many of the issues that the clones face around identity and purpose. The show also dives deeper into the fact that all clones are individuals. They might have the same face, but they don't look the same. They don't act the same. They have the same voice, but they don't say the same things. Other than, sorry, yes sir, but we're not going to talk about that. Anakin's character gets a lot more depth, and it just makes Revenge of the Sith so much more tragic. We get to see closer how his past and how his love for the people around him make him ready to abandon everything the Jedi stand for. There are definitely some Vader moments here and there, and there are some really great arcs that show how Anakin loses trust in the Jedi Order. For example, the box arc, where the Jedi don't feel like telling Anakin that Obi-Wan isn't actually dead, but he's just going undercover. And of course when Ahsoka gets expelled from the Jedi Order for something she didn't do. Basically, this is all about adding depth to the characters and planets already seen in the films. Examples of planets are Felucia, Camino, and Coruscant. Personally, I love this kind of stuff, seeing different planets and cultures and getting a broader view of planets that we already see in the films. Then of course getting to know more about some of the characters like Obi-Wan and Mace Windu and other Jedi on the Jedi Council. And then of course, Ki-Adi-Mundi, he's a beloved Jedi Master, and it's good to see more of him as well. But then there are some of the more obscure characters that we also get to see a lot more of. For example, Aurra Sing or Barriss. The series at many points show how deep Palpatine's corruption really goes, and even though the prequels do a fairly good job of showing Palpatine's hand in the grand scheme of things, it's great to see that also being in the background of a lot of the Clone Wars episodes. Another great thing is seeing how close at some points people were to find out the truth about Palpatine, and then also seeing some of Palpatine's failed attempts of getting more power, of doing something but failing at it. I think that's good to see as well. I'm not sure if I explained that well at all, but I hope you know what I mean. In my opinion, the Clone Wars has some of the best Star Wars stories out there. It has stories that we don't really see anywhere else in Star Wars, or at least not in the current canon, and there are absolutely many top-tier Star Wars moments in the Clone Wars. And of course there are some bad episodes, but still, the Clone Wars does have some of the most badass / epic / emotional moments in all of Star Wars. Or maybe I'm just biased. But personally, I like almost all the Clone Wars episodes, and I do believe there is something for everyone. Maybe the Clone Wars isn't for everybody, but there is something for everyone, I believe. Also, something that's important to note is that some of these arcs are actually really important in the bigger picture, and they tie into, Rebels and The Mandalorian, and probably to a lot of future things as well. The Clone Wars brings back a character, and it's actually well done, and it adds a lot of value, not just to this show but also in future things. Maul had a lot of potential in The Phantom Menace, and I'm really glad that we get to see more of him. He's such a good character, and his arc is just really well done in the Clone Wars. There are not many stories from a Separatist point of view, and meanwhile we don't get any stories that directly follow the Separatists. We do get to see a lot more from them than what the movies offer, seeing how the Separatists operate and how they run their army and what their government looks like. I don't know if you can call it a government, but the place where politicians assemble to discuss important things. Of course, Count Dooku is pretty important in the operation of the Separatists, but also seeing some of the smaller leader figures is quite interesting. The Separatists could be explored a lot more in the future, but the Clone Wars does provide some insight into what kind of people they were. Basically, there are so many new places, species and planets. Some of these were probably explored in what is now Legends, but there are a lot of new things, and what I especially like seeing is the home planets of some like really well-known characters or species, examples being Moncala, Rhodia. It just adds a lot of, I guess, depth to the universe, and it just makes the galaxy feel bigger, and I don't know, I just really love seeing really cool alien homeworlds and species and that kind of stuff. As mentioned before, the Clone Wars does add a lot of depth to existing characters, but it also introduces some amazing new characters. Of course, Ahsoka is a big one, but then there are characters like Savage, Cad Bane, Rex, Fives, Hondo, Satine, Bo-Katan. Actually, when I think about it, most of my favorite characters are all original characters from the Clone Wars. Because of the way that the show works, it focuses on a lot of different things. We get to see, of course, more of how the Republic military operates, but also it shows the civilian lives of, well, Republic citizens, but also other people. And then we also get to see more of the politics and that kind of side of the war. It shows many different aspects of the Republic, and it just generally lets us see better how the Republic operates. And this is something I touched on already in my review video, but basically a lot of the filler type episodes actually are really entertaining and provide a lot of value. Actually, some of my top rated episodes could be easily classified as fillers. Because of how the show works, it's a bit hard to say what is a filler and what is not a filler, aside from a few obvious ones. There's a lot of really good moments in some of these episodes that are not necessarily connected to any other episode. In my book, that's a good thing, since it gives us a lot more to watch and enjoy. One big argument for the people who refuse to watch the Clone Wars is that it's made for kids and it's too kid-friendly or too childish. And yes, there are things, especially in the first seasons, that can feel a bit childish, but those are usually followed by some pretty brutal moments. For example, here when this is some guy who's farting and stuff, and then he just gets brutally murdered by Grievous. They are not afraid to show deaths on screen. I mean, yes, there's no blood, but showing someone being decapitated, I would say, is pretty brutal. Any of the really child-friendly stuff disappears pretty quickly. It's rated 6+, and the target audience for sure is not 6-year-olds. Also, something to appreciate about the show is that it's not afraid to show the dark side of the war, basically, and things we don't really, again, see on screen as much. This point might be a bit strange, but let me explain. Basically, because of how the show works, you're not required to watch every single episode. There are different lists around on the internet where people have compiled like the most important / the best episodes. As I already said, I do recommend still watching all of it, preferably in chronological order. But once you've done that, you don't have to watch the entire show again from start to finish. You can just watch whatever episodes or arcs you feel like at that moment. So, if you've seen the Clone Wars, let me know if you agree with these points, or if there's something you would add, or if there's something that you think is just not the case. My videos so far have been a bit the Clone Wars heavy, but that's just because I'm inspired by my rewatch. But don't worry, that's not all I want to make videos about. Anyway, see you in the next video next week. Why did I sound like a robot? Why did I just sound like a robot?